The envelope sat between us like a loaded weapon. My mother slid it across the linen tablecloth, her diamond ring catching the chandelier light of Maison Lumiere. My sister, Brielle, lifted her phone as if she were documenting a moment of triumph instead of betrayal. Even the string quartet hesitated mid-note, sensing the shift in air. Inside that envelope wasn't money, not a card, not congratulations. It was a formal disavowal letter, signed by my parents and my sister, my graduation gift. I didn't gasp. I didn't plead. I folded it once, twice, and stood up. Silence was the only language they ever taught me to speak fluently. My parents thought they were ending me. They never realized they were freeing me. Growing up in the Hart household meant learning that love came with performance metrics. My father, Andrew Hart, measured affection by achievement and return on investment. My mother, Clarissa, measured it in appearances and social capital. Brielle, their golden child, happened to score perfectly in both categories. At every gala or dinner party, introductions followed the same script. This is Brielle, senior associate in New York. My mother would beam, resting a manicured hand on my sister's shoulder. Then the tone would soften. And this is Amelia. She's still studying. A polite smile, a quick nod, eyes drifting back to their champagne flutes. I learned to smile back, predictable and quiet. I worked nights at a cafe near campus, where the espresso machine hissed louder than the expectations at home. Nobody there cared about legacies or last names. They cared about getting their order right. I liked that. It was honest, measurable, real. But at home, my father called my degree a long detour. Brielle said my job was character building, which was her way of calling it irrelevant. So when they invited me to dinner 2 days before graduation, a place they only reserved for milestones that weren't mine, I knew something was off. The reservation didn't even include my name. The hostess greeted the Hart family, Andrew, Clarissa, Brielle. That omission wasn't an accident. It was a message, but nothing prepared me for the envelope. I sat back down slowly, my pulse steady. My mother watched me with an expectant tilt of her head, waiting for the performance, tears, shock, maybe a breakdown she could later recount to friends as so unfortunate. Instead, I looked at each of them, memorizing their composed faces, their certainty, their arrogance. Then I said, softly, "Thank you." Brielle blinked. "You're thanking us?" "Yes," I said, "for finally putting in writing what you've been showing me my entire life." The table fell silent. I placed the folded letter beside my untouched wine glass and stood again. "You didn't end anything," I whispered. "You just confirmed what I already knew." As I walked out of the restaurant, the night air hit me, like a promise, cold, clean, unmistakably free. They thought the letter was their power. But walking away without looking back, that was mine. Long before that envelope appeared on the table. Long before disavowal became a neatly typed contract. The truth had already been written into the walls of our home. Favoritism in the Hart family wasn't loud. It wasn't shouted or thrown like plates. It was quiet, polished, and deliberate. The kind of cruelty that hides behind crystal glasses and perfectly ironed linen. From the moment we could walk, my sister Brielle learned how to glide. I learned how to get out. Of the way at school recitals, Brielle stood center stage in dresses my mother spent weeks choosing, her curls pinned with pearl clips. My mother would lean forward in the front row, blinking back theatrical tears. "Look at our star," she whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. When it was my turn to perform, piano, speaking, anything, she always seemed to remember. Something urgently in her purse. A ringing phone, a text from a friend, a smudge on her lipstick that required immediate repair. Applause for me was always a beat too late. By high school, the pattern wasn't just visible. It was structural. My father, Andrew, adored measurable outcomes, rankings, awards, salaries. Real. The future attorney delivered them like clockwork. Debate medals, internship secured through family connections, flawless report cards. Meanwhile, I excelled in data science and research. But my achievements were interesting rather than impressive. When I showed him my first algorithm, model I built at 16 that predicted bus delays with 87% accuracy, he barely looked up. Useful hobby, he said. A hobby. 2 weeks later, Brielle won a regional debate competition. My father threw her a dinner party. The whole house smelled of saffron and triumph. I sat at the end of the table, invisible in the candlelight. Even holidays carried the imbalance. Brielle received jewelry, designer coats, handwritten letters praising her ambition. I received gift, cards, and polite smiles. Something simple, as my mother called it, since you never seemed to need much. The irony wasn't lost on me. Needing nothing was the role they assigned to me. So eventually, I stopped asking for anything at all. By college, the favoritism had matured into emotional neglect, cold, efficient, and almost elegant in its precision. When Brielle received her first job offer, my parents posted about it within minutes, hashtags, professional photos, champagne flutes in hand. When I earned a national research scholarship, an award fewer than 30 students nationwide received, my mother didn't respond for 6 hours. Her eventual reply was a single sentence. So proud of you, sweetheart. Gala tonight. May we post tomorrow? They never posted. That was the night I realized something permanent. In my family, attention was currency, and I was always the unpaid intern in their empire. But what truly solidified my understanding came, not through words, but through patterns. At dinner parties, Brielle was the headline. I was the footnote. Of family photos. She stood in the center. I was placed at the edge, half lit, half seen. In every conversation, my achievements were treated like placeholders until Brielle's turn to speak. I learned to smile politely, to nod, to fade, the kind of disappearance that becomes muscle. Memory. But fading is not the same as breaking. Even then, buried under the weight of expectation and silence, something small and steady was forming inside me, a sense of self not shaped by their approval, but by their absence. I didn't know it yet, but someday that quiet resilience would become the sharpest tool I owned. And the first seed of it was planted long before they disowned me. It was planted the first time I realized I didn't need them to see me in order to exist. Silence became my native language long before I understood its power. While Brielle thrived under spotlights crafted for her, I grew in the shadows, not wilted, not forgotten, but sharpening quietly in all the places where no one thought to look. The Hart family home rewarded performance, not authenticity. And since I couldn't compete with Brielle's curated charm, I stopped trying to fit into their script. Instead, I began writing my own. Every night after classes, while my parents sipped imported wine and Brielle rehearsed her next debate speech, I worked at the corner cafe 2 blocks from campus. The espresso machine hissed louder than any conversation at home. The orders came fast, precise, honest, extra shot, vanilla, ice, no foam, no manipulation, no performance, just tasks. Completed and measurable. In that cafe, no one knew the Hart name. No one cared about pedigrees or polished fracas. People valued what I did, not how I appeared. It was the first place I felt real. With every shift, I funded my tuition 1 hour at a time. With every night walk home, I imagined a life built with my own hands, not borrowed legacy. And while my parents dismissed my job as character building, they didn't know I was building more than character. I was building leverage. The quiet, kind. In my tiny apartment, lit only by the soft glow of my laptop, I worked on research models, coding projects, predictive algorithms. The work soothed me. Numbers didn't lie. Patterns didn't shift based on who was in the room. They were stable in a way people rarely were. My mentor, Dr. Alvarez, was the first to see what my family couldn't. She saw order where they saw insignificance. She saw discipline where they saw detours. When I submitted a preliminary version of what would one day become RootFlow, the logistics optimization platform, she didn't just give feedback. She gave direction. Don't sell yourself, she told me. Show the data. The data will convince anyone who matters. So I refined, rebuilt, simulated, tested again. My family never asked what I was working on. They didn't believe silence could build anything meaningful. They thought the quiet parts of my life were empty. But silence wasn't emptiness. Silence was accumulation. Every ignored achievement became motivation. Every dismissed idea became fuel. Every moment of invisibility became space to grow unmonitored. I kept records, digital copies of awards, proposals, drafts, emails, not to prove myself to them, but to ensure my future had structure even if my past didn't. While Brielle curated her public persona, I curated data. And data does not negotiate. Data does not beg. Data stands. By the time RootFlow evolved from a research concept into a functioning platform, I knew something essential. I didn't need their validation. I only needed proof. And I was building it piece by piece. My silence was no longer survival. It was strategy. For years, the Hart family's favoritism had been subtle. A tilt of a head, an unfinished sentence, applause arriving one beat late. But the moment that revealed my true status did not whisper. It declared. It arrived as a link in the family group chat. A reservation confirmation. Maison Lumiere. Pre-graduation dinner for Amelia. Dress appropriately. No emoji. No warmth. No excitement for the daughter about to graduate with honors and a groundbreaking project. Just a directive, wrapped in the clipped tone of people who thought formality could substitute for affection. Still, I clicked the link. The page loaded slowly, golden text against a black velvet background. I scanned the guest list. The Bennett family, Andrew, Clarissa, Brille. My name was nowhere. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a simple oversight, a technical error. My breath paused, suspended between denial and certainty. Then I stared longer. The hosting name, the number of seats reserved, the accompanying message, table prepared for the Hart family's celebration, not Amelia's. Celebration. There's. I scrolled up again, and again. My name did not appear. Not as a guest, not as the reason for the reservation. Not even as an afterthought. I was the event, but not a participant. Before I could fully process it, another notification buzzed. A private message from Brielle. Don't overthink it. It's just formatting. Formatting. The word hit harder than any insult she could have chosen. It wasn't cruel, not loudly. It was worse, clinical, thoughtless, efficient. Like deleting a variable from a spreadsheet. Like erasing an entry from a ledger. Like removing a person from a family. Formatting. I stared at the message long enough for the screen to dim. My heart didn't break. It simply rearranged itself into something colder, sharper, more organized than before. I typed nothing back. Instead, I studied the reservation like data, analyzing structure, motive, intention. Because data rarely lies. They didn't forget me. They omitted me. There's a difference. My apartment was quiet except for the hum of my computer. I sat at my desk, the city lights flickering through the blinds like static. On my screen, unread messages from professors, investors, and journalists. Piled up, people who valued my work, who saw something in me my family never tried to understand. But that night, none of it felt like enough. Because achievements don't soothe wounds when the wound is the people who gave you your name. I clicked open old photos. Vacations. Fundraisers. Holiday cards. In everyone. My mother's posture was flawless. My father's smile rehearsed. Brielle centered. And me? Always at the edge of the frame. Half lit. Half included. Half acknowledged. But it wasn't new. It was just the first time I saw it without hope blurring the edges. I closed the photos and leaned back, letting the ceiling fan hum above me. Steady, predictable, everything my family wasn't. Then, as if the universe wanted to script the scene for me, an email arrived. Commencement ceremony update. Speech confirmation. My mentor, Dr. Alvarez, had nominated me for the Young Leader in Technology Award and a speaking slot at graduation. Her message beneath it read, "This is your moment, Amelia. Own it quietly." Quietly. That word felt like home. Not the heart home, but the one I built in silence, discipline, and proof. I closed the laptop. The room shifted from blue light to amber glow. I saw things clearly for the first time in years. My life wasn't chaotic. It was organized, just not by them. The reservation formatting error was not a mistake. It was a revelation. And revelations demand response, not with emotion, but with preparation. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I started collecting records, emails, certificates, awards, contracts, prototypes, everything. With a TIMESTAMP. Not to show them, but to show myself that I was no longer optional. While they curated a perfect family image, I curated proof. Proof that I had built myself outside of their spotlight. Proof that I was not a footnote. Proof that one day, when I finally stood in front of them, I wouldn't need their names beside mine, because formatting doesn't erase truth. It only reveals who holds the pen and who is quietly writing there. Own story. The night of the formatting incident, something fundamental shifted inside me. Not a spark. A blueprint. My family had spent years teaching me that I was peripheral, ornamental, optional, good for quiet contributions, never worthy of center stage. So I decided to build something powerful in the very space they ignored, silence. While Brielle curated her public persona and my parents perfected their social mask, I sat at my desk surrounded by glowing lines of code, graphs, and simulation models. The world inside my laptop was the only place where merit ruled, where truth wasn't subjective, and where no one could erase my name because they failed to see my value. It started as a class research assignment, an algorithm to optimize delivery, roots for small logistics companies. Simple idea, massive potential. At first, it was just me and an old laptop that overheated every 45 minutes. Then came Ethan, my classmate with a mind sharp enough to see flaws in any model I built. His insights pushed my code to evolve. Then my adjoined, a UI designer who could turn raw data into something almost beautiful. Together, we built what we jokingly called Project Root Flow, unaware that it would become something that would rewrite our futures. But the true breakthrough happened alone at 3:12 a.m. on a rain-heavy Tuesday. My simulation ran clean. Not just clean, but revolutionary. Fuel cost reduction, 12.4% delivery time improvement, 18% margin increases. Undeniable. I leaned back, staring at the numbers glowing on the screen. There it was, proof, in data form. The kind of proof that didn't need applause or validation, or a place on a reservation list. Proof that I was capable of creating something from nothing. While my family celebrated Brielle's latest legal internship, I was running simulations, debugging loops, and refining predictive models. While they raised champagne flutes, I raised accuracy scores. While they ignored me, I built something they couldn't ignore forever. When the university announced a startup symposium, Dr. Alvarez insisted we present. "You don't have to sell her," she said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Let Root Flow speak." And speak it did. Our presentation started with polite applause. It ended with industry professionals forming a line to ask about scalability, rights, models, integrations. Their interest was precise, hungry, tangible. Among them stood a man in a tailored gray suit, Nathan Cole, CEO of Northbridge Logistics. He wasn't loud or flashy. He studied our graphs with quiet intensity, tracing lines with his finger, nodding as numbers clicked into place. You've built something fair, he said finally. Not efficient, not profitable, fair. a word I had never heard in my own household. We met twice in the following weeks. Both meetings were technical, focused, pragmatic. The third meeting changed everything. Nathan slid a folder across the table, the same way my mother would slide the disavowal letter much later. Inside, a $6.20 million acquisition proposal for root flow, plus a director-level position for me post-graduation. The offer was staggering, but I didn't sign immediately. I read every clause like my life depended on it, because in a way, it did. My family taught me that people can revoke affection like a contract, but data, signed agreements, timestamp transfers, these were permanent. When I finally signed, it wasn't triumph I felt. It was balance, a leveling of scales long tilted against me. That night, back in my apartment, I printed the contract. The sound of the paper sliding out of the printer was cleaner than applause, sharper than their polished indifference, more grounding than any childhood memory of being half seen. Their family image was curated. My future was built. And the best part, they still had no idea. Root Flow's success grew quietly, like roots beneath soil, invisible until it becomes impossible to ignore. I kept every document, every transfer, every clause, every line of code, every email from Nathan, every award notification. Not for them, for me. Because one day, I would walk into a room they expected me to crawl out of, and I would no longer arrive empty-handed. I wouldn't arrive seeking approval. I would arrive carrying proof. The acquisition deal closed on a Wednesday morning. The disavowal dinner was scheduled for Friday night. Between those 2 days, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Certainty. My family thought the dinner would be a stage. Their stage, where they could finally deliver the verdict they had written about me long before I ever had the chance to rewrite it myself. But I wasn't walking into a performance. I was walking into documentation. Thursday night, my apartment hummed with the quiet order I'd made into a habit. The storm outside pressed against the windows, but inside, everything was ranged in clean symmetry. I brewed coffee, the scent, grounding me more than any memory ever had. Then I began assembling my archive. Not an emotional one, a factual one. Contracts, acquisition letters, email confirmations, timeline charts, patent drafts, financial transfers, my offer letter from Northbridge Logistics. I placed each document into a slim, neutral gray folder, the kind that didn't beg to be noticed but demanded respect when opened. It wasn't about proving myself to them. That ship had sailed long ago. This was about alignment, putting truth on the table beside whatever narrative they planned to hand me in an envelope. Once the folder was complete, I cleaned my apartment the way I always did before major moments. Every object aligned, every surface wiped down, every detail intentional. Order soothed me. It reminded me that chaos had no authority here. Then came the final step, attire. I didn't dress to impress them. I dressed to be recorded. A charcoal blazer, structured shoulders, hair pulled cleanly back, minimal makeup, precision, not decoration. The kind of look that whispered, I am not here for your approval. I am here for the record. Before leaving, for the dinner, I stood in my living room, the city lights reflecting off the silver clip holding the folder together. For a moment, I ran my fingers across the embossed Northbridge letterhead, not as reassurance, but as acknowledgement. Everything inside that folder represented years of silence repurposed into strategy. Years they thought I was falling behind, when, in reality, I was building something they could never claim credit for. When I finally locked the door and stepped into the night air, it felt crisp, ceremonial. They believed tonight would be the moment they erased me. They didn't know I was coming with proof that I had already rewritten the script. Maison Lumiere looked the same, as it always had: crystal chandeliers, velvet drapes, white linens ironed within an inch of perfection. It was my mother's habitat, a curated world where appearances were currency and emotions were liabilities. I stepped inside with the gray folder tucked beneath my arm. its weight steady, grounding. The hostess looked up. Hart family, she asked. I nodded. A flicker of confusion crossed her eyes when she realized my name wasn't on the reservation. But she recovered quickly. Professionalism, after all, was part of the restaurant's brand. They're already seated. Of course they were. My family occupied a corner table beneath a waterfall of chandelier light. My mother's posture was impeccable, spine straight as a blade. My father measured, composed, rested one hand on his wine glass. Brielle was adjusting her phone camera, framing the moment she expected would humiliate me. To them. Tonight was closure. To me, it was documentation. Amelia, darling, my mother said with a polished smile, we have something special for you. The server stepped forward and placed a pristine white envelope by my plate. My father cleared his throat. It's time we all move forward, he said. Rehearsed authority shaping every word. My mother added, from all of us. Her voice was dipped in sugar, but her eyes sparkled with victory. I lifted the envelope with steady fingers, opened it. Read the embossed legal phrasing. They were formally releasing and relinquishing all familial ties to me. Their signatures lined the bottom, perfect loops of practiced detachment. It was meant to end me. Instead, I felt a calmness settle in my chest. School. Clean, liberating. I folded the letter once, twice, placed it neatly beside my spoon. Thank you, I said. The table froze. Brielle blinked. You're thanking us? Yes, I replied, for confirming, in writing, what you've shown me my whole life. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. My father narrowed his eyes. Don't be dramatic, Amelia. This is best for all of us. No, I said softly, it's best for you. My mother's smile faltered. We did this with love, to give you clarity. I reached into my bag, pulled out the gray folder, and placed it on the table with the precision of a final move in chess. You wanted clarity? I said. Here it is. I opened the folder toward them. The Northbridge Logistics letterhead gleamed under the chandelier. Beneath it, Acquisition Agreement Root Flow Technologies name, Amelia Hart role. Director of Data Operations post-merger. Valuation, $6 million to $100,000. For a moment, my family became a painting frozen mid-emotion. My father leaned forward first, scanning the document with widening eyes. You sold something? He asked, voice cracking. You built this. I built it, I said. Then I sold it. My mother pressed her fingertips to her lips, the color draining from her face. We didn't know. I know, I replied. Brielle's phone slowly lowered. The recording button dimmed. This can't be real, she whispered. I met her gaze. It's timestamped, verified, filed, and unlike your disavowal letter, this one actually changes my life. My father tried to salvage control. Amelia, why didn't you tell us? Because, I said, rising from my chair, you taught me my achievements meant nothing unless they were useful to you. I lifted the disavowal letter and slid it gently back across the table. You can keep this. I said, I already have my own documentation. The irony landed with surgical precision. My mother reached toward me. Amelia. No, I said, stepping back. You don't get to rewrite this moment. They had walked into this restaurant, expecting to diminish me. Instead, they watched their narrative collapse with a single folder. Roles reversed instantly. They were the ones left speechless. I was the one walking away, proof in hand, power reclaimed. And as I stepped toward the doorway, the soft piano behind us shifted to a new melody, one that sounded a lot like freedom. Asterisk when I stepped away from the table. The restaurant's soft piano notes followed me like a slow, elegant curtain call. Behind me, the Hart family sat in stunned stillness. The same pristine tableau they always maintained, except this time the cracks showed. Power had shifted without a single raised voice. And it was silence, not confrontation, that delivered the final blow. I didn't rush, Victors never do. As I walked toward the glass doors of Maison Lumiere, I felt the weight of my gray folder lighten, as though the truth inside it had finally been acknowledged by the only audience that ever mattered, myself. The hostess gave me a small nod of respect, the kind reserved for people who leave rooms changed. I stepped out into the cool night air, a breeze rising off the river and carrying away whatever remnants of doubt still clung to me. Behind the glass, my family remained frozen, my father's hand trembling on his wine stem, my mother's smile shattered somewhere between pride and panic. Brielle staring at the acquisition letter like it was written in an alphabet she'd never learned. For the first time in my life, their silence wasn't suffocating. It was satisfying. I walked slowly down the glistening pavement, the city lights flickering across puddles like little confirmations that I had chosen the right path. My heels clicked with a rhythm steadier than my heartbeat. When I reached the riverfront, my phone vibrated. A message from my mother. We didn't know. We need to talk. Please don't leave things like this. I stared at the screen. 3 short sentences. 3 decades too late. I turned the phone face down and slipped it into my blazer pocket. Silence was my reply. Another message came. Brielle this time. Amelia, this is being blown out of proportion. We didn't mean it like that. Can we fix this? No. What they meant and what they signed were the same thing. A verdict. A conclusion about my worth. They had just never expected me to have my own verdict ready in return. I kept walking until I reached a bench overlooking the river. The city buzzed behind me, alive and indifferent, exactly the way I wanted my past to feel. Freedom didn't roar, it exhaled. I sat down and breathed with it. For the first time in years, the silence inside me wasn't the muting of who I was. It was the clearing of space to become who I had always been. I pulled the dissoundment letter from my bag, unfolded it under the street lamp's soft glow. The embossed crest, the crisp signature loops, the formal phrasing, all the effort they put into breaking me. I folded it again, neatly, not out of sentiment, but out of classification. Just another document filed in the long archive of my life. One that would eventually sit behind museum glass in my mind labeled irrelevant. When I returned to my apartment, the city was slipping toward dawn. Soft light filtered through the blinds, lining my desk with geometric shadows. I placed the dissoundment letter beside my framed degree dot next to my Northbridge offer, next to the root flow patent draft, next to my scholarship plaques. Their letter looked small beside the others, flat, powerless. I picked it up once more, slid it behind the frame, and let it settle there. Not hidden, just ordered, placed exactly where it belonged. In the past. My phone buzzed again. Dad, this time. Amelia, call me. We need to work this out. I exhaled slowly, the calmest breath I had taken in years. I turned off my phone. Silence wasn't avoidance. Silence was mastery. Silence was the victory they never saw coming, because they never thought I was capable of choosing myself so completely. And that was my final confirmation. They wrote me out of their story, but I became the chapter they could never rewrite. By sunrise, the city felt newly washed, the streets still damp from the night's rain. I stood by my apartment window, watching the early joggers, the delivery vans, the quiet rhythm of a world that kept moving regardless of who approved of whom. There was something comforting in that indifference. On my kitchen counter lay documents, the Northbridge acquisition letter, embossed and undeniable, and the dissoundment letter, folded neatly, its sharp edges dulled by irrelevance. One represented my future. The other represented the last attempt anyone would ever make to define me without my consent. My phone buzzed again, a long, insistent vibration. Avery, we didn't mean it like that. Please don't shut us out. Can we talk? Just once? A month ago, those words would have shattered me. A week ago, they would have stirred confusion. Today, they meant nothing. Peace doesn't come from apologies delivered too late. Peace comes from recognizing you no longer need them. I placed the phone face down and poured myself a cup of coffee. The steam curled upward, soft and steady, mirroring the calm settling into my bones. I had spent years waiting to be acknowledged, hoping my achievements would finally earn their approval. But standing here now, I saw the truth clearly. Validation is a leash. Peace is a choice. I dress for the day, not in armor, not in performance, but in comfort. A soft sweater, clean lines, hair loosely tied. No need for precision today. This wasn't a battle. It wasn't even an aftermath. It was a beginning. Before leaving the apartment, I slid the dissownment letter behind my framed degree. Not hidden, just correctly categorized. A minor footnote behind a major milestone. As I locked the door and stepped into the morning sun, I felt the quiet kind of strength that doesn't need to be seen to exist. They had taken their voice back. When they signed that letter, I was taking mine back by not answering. Silence wasn't surrender. It was direction. Peace rebuilt itself inside me like a well-structured system, stable, resilient. Something I created entirely on my own terms. And for the first time, I understood. I didn't need to forgive them. I just needed to free myself. Message and lesson for the listener: sometimes the people you want approval from the most are the ones least capable of giving it. Your worth is not a vote. Your value is not a family consensus. The moment you stop chasing validation, you start choosing peace. And that is where real power begins.